Hello? 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 Nope. Hello? You guys got sound? There it is. All right. Let's start this again. Welcome all. Come into the live chat, the live stream, and the live chat. Hello, everyone. We're going to restart this audio version of the video, or the video with the audio on, and then it stopped. No, gone again. Damn it. All right, sorry guys. Hey, 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 hey. We hear you. Natural Progressive says we hear you. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Weirdness. Slick the Skeet made it. Thank you, Slick the Skeet. Come on in. Left only, but we'll take it. Yeah, you actually generally it's left only on these videos. I don't know why. So I'm going to start every video. My new phrase for every video start is remember to like the video and remember to make sure that you are still subscribed to this channel. Veronica, hello. Jazz, hello. Gene, hello. Daniel V, hello. All right, so getting back to this article, climate change. This is the big news this week. As far as, climate change news, 11,000 scientists have endorsed research that says the world is facing a climate emergency. That's in the face of the three scientists that are like, we don't have any proof that CO2 is anything other than plant food. So 11,000 to 3. You lose 3. No, you're not, you're not the 3 who are uncovering some mass conspiracy by climate scientists. That's not what's happening. What you have is an overwhelming body of evidence. You have an overwhelming consensus of scientists. That's what you have. So, like button smash, thank you. Yeah, also, if you like the video, more people will see the video and see that I'm live and hopefully jump on in. So yeah, let's look at this article. I got this a couple days ago, but I had already uploaded some videos, so I really couldn't cover it until today. This is from the BBC, by the way, and this is from November 5th, 2 days ago. A global group of around 11,000 scientists have endorsed research that says the world is facing a climate emergency. The study, based on 40 years of data on a range of measures, says governments are failing to address the crisis. Without deep and lasting changes, the world is facing untold human suffering, the study says. The researchers say, let's read that again, the world is facing untold human suffering, quote unquote, the study says. The researchers say they have a moral obligation to warn of the scale of the threat. I know a lot of you saw this article. Natural Progressive, hello. Glad you're here. I know a lot of you saw this article, and, it's obvious. I mean, it's just another brick in the wall of evidence that we have that this is, we're not in a good place. That climate change is very real. That the governments of the world at large are ignoring the problem, are not, here's something to blow up all the conspiracy theorists, all the climate deniers arguments. And that is, since, what was it? Since the Kyoto Protocol, which was 20 years ago, emissions have increased every single year. And they're still increasing every single year. Since the Paris Agreement, emissions have increased every single year. We don't really have, as stupid as a carbon tax is, we don't have like a generic carbon tax. We don't have an agreed upon, carbon tax, or what, should people, what are governments going to be doing about this? Well, who are we taxing? How are we taxing? And carbon tax being the dumbest idea of all the ideas aside, we don't really have any widespread top-down implementation of things that are going to help or change or mitigate climate change, and it hasn't really been put in place. What have we had? We've had, President Bush, who's locked up all the electric vehicles and tried to, foist SUVs onto the population at large. They've tried to give them tax breaks for everybody to buy SUVs so that we could buy more gas and spend more money buying gas. So, and we have President Trump, basically destroying the environment, hand over fist, pulling out of the Paris Agreement. We don't have any action on climate change. So, this whole idea that like climate change is a big conspiracy for the people to make, the globalists to make money and take over. What are they doing? They're not doing anything. They are not doing anything. Nothing is happening. Climate change is not being solved. Nothing is being fixed. So your argument is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, for one thing. And two, you have two scientists, you have one doofus, Tony Heller, who's I'm sure paid by a think tank. I'm positive the Council on Foreign Relations or some think tank or some group, APAC or somebody pays Tony Heller's checks. Make sure that he, gets his butt wiped every day because, probably with $100 bills, because, he doesn't have any proof. He doesn't have any sources. He doesn't have any truth. And he's an idiot. But, apparently there are a lot of other idiots out there that are like, Tony Heller says, I watch Tony Heller, so therefore I'm something. Zoxalix says the carbon tax scam has damaged the legitimacy of the climate catastrophe humanity is facing. It's just like Russia. Yeah. It's true. I actually wish that people would stop, I wish that scientists would stop putting forth this carbon tax thing, because it is a way to kind of monetize. It's a way to monetize the whole climate crisis, and then you have people, the whole idea of carbon offsets is really terrible. It's a terrible thing. Well, if I pollute over here, but I plant some trees over here, if I destroy this whole habitat over here, but I give some people money over here, I'm fine, right? We're fine. We have carbon offsets. Just the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. Carbon tax is a limited hangout. Thank you, Boiled Rope Lamppost. Keith Boyd, Heartland Institute. Yeah, one of them. It's one of those. Most likely Heartland Institute, or there are probably 10 or 12. One could name that could be the people that are paying Tony Heller to basically screw people over and screw their brains up. And he's like, I'm fine with that. Which makes Tony Heller one of the most evil people. I don't know if maybe he actually believes what he's saying, but I don't understand how he could. The dude says natural progressive carbon taxes the masses paying the elite to keep polluting. Yeah, and and if people were having real conversations about mitigating climate change, they would be talking about reducing carbon emissions, reducing consumption, and that's reducing consumption is one of the things that nobody will ever talk about, because you have to keep consuming, you have to keep buying electric cars, and you have to keep buying things, and then I mean, I think it's a lovely idea that people sell things and, you know, contribute to some cause or whatever. The whole point of it is to make you feel good about buying the thing. But we have to start talking about just not buying stuff, all the stuff. I mean, we need some stuff, but we don't need all the stuff. We need very little stuff. And that's the message that nobody will ever, you know, they're never going to voice that. At least not on the mainstream. Tory Perger says Russia is real, guys. Well, they're a real country and they exist. Real as in, yeah. Gene says, yes, Russia exists. No by Christmas, natural progressive. I am with you on that. In fact, so I asked people not to buy me things for my birthday, and I'm going to, now as I see people, you know, pulling out the Christmas decorations and I see people pulling out the stuff for Christmas, I'm going to let everyone know far and wide, do not, you know, look, you know, send me a text, or if you're, you know, in my immediate vicinity, like, you know, buy me a coffee or whatever. But I don't want, I'd rather like have community for Christmas than anything else. And I don't want any presents personally. I'm not doing it. The dude says it's the free market, baby. Bracelets that clean the ocean. I don't know. Is that a real thing? I'm laughing, but I think that's a joke. Maybe there are bracelets that clean the ocean. You know, technology is amazing these days, guys. Alternative meat. That'll save us. Of course. Scott Murdo says it's time for a technology triage operation. D-Truth says no child benefit for third child in the UK. Is that a proposal or is that an actual law? I wouldn't think that it would be, but clarify if you can, D-Truth. Is that true? I think that's awesome if that's true. The dude says made from plastic scoop from the ocean. Okay. But in the meantime, let's all just continue buying things made of, bottled in plastic or made of plastic, and let's just, since we can't recycle things anymore, and boats just dump stuff in the ocean because they can't, they're turned away at China's door. We're going to have to, it's like bailing out a boat that's taking on water, with a very small coffee cup. You're going to have to really, keep that bailing arm going, guys. Turn trash into rubbish, then sell. You know what? You could live quite, the USA is a perfect example of, you can have a lot of things and be homeless and not have any money. Osama, bienvenidos. You made it. Natural Progressive says bulk stores, no packaging. Exactly. Bracelet for plastic is a real Australia business. Real. D-Truth says very true, mate. Didn't know that. I had no idea. That's awesome. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it makes it slightly more uneconomical to have that third child. People might think about it. Oh, we're not going to get a tax break. I personally think we should eliminate all tax breaks for children because that's, we're encouraging childbirth, any tax break. So we should have, a tax burden or a tax levy against the second child, right? So first child, you're good. The bailing arm, Hapsutaki, Get the bailing arm going. Come on, guys. We're going down. Tax levy for the second child, and maybe a really heavy one for the third child, right? Like maybe $1,000 tax levy for the second child, and maybe like 10,000 for the third child. The dude saw a video of a guy who collected floating plastic bottles, bundled them into bricks, made a floating house out of it, all by himself. Pretty cool. So, TCR Galaxy says, I haven't bought any new clothes for 2 years. Being a minimalist is amazing, but just about nobody gives a shit. Well, it's true. Nobody gives a shit, but, you kind of become... if you actually interact with other people, you can kind of become a model. People could be like, what do you... I'm a super minimalist. And I make my own deodorant, my own toothpaste, my own sunblock, my own, I buy wooden toothbrushes and, I don't know. I try and take myself out of the consumer stream as much as I can. And you're right, nobody really cares. But I care. It's time to, you got to megaphone the fact that people got to, stop fetishizing, new cars. Stop fetishizing, new Hummers or new Mercedes-Benz 4x4. Just stop fetishizing all this shit. Or fashion. Or new shoes. Or, your sneaker collection. Or your, blah, blah, blah. Or your new tech gadget. Or, you're buying, upgrading your phone every single year. Like, stop fetishizing that stuff. Stop making it like, ooh, that's really cool. That goes a long way to, reversing the narrative around consumption that we have. But it's awful hard because you get that narrative 24/7. Welcome in, y'all. Did everybody see this article about the 11,000 scientists? And is it just, it's kind of more of the same? It's what we already know. The researchers say they have a moral obligation to warn of the scale of the threat. Released on the day that satellite data shows that last month was the warmest October on record, the new study says that simply measuring global surface temperatures is an inadequate way of capturing the real dangers of an overheating world. So the authors include a range of data which they believe represents a suite of graphical vital signs of climate change over the past 40 years. These indicators include the growth of human and animal populations. What? They're actually talking about human and animal population. Well, animal populations meaning for consumption animals, right? Livestock. Per capita meat production, global tree cover loss, as well as fossil fuel consumption. For example, some progress has been made in some areas. For example, renewable energy has grown significantly with consumption of wind and solar increasing 373% per decade. But it was still 18 times smaller than fossil fuel, 28 times, smaller than fossil fuel use in 2018. Yeah. So lots of growth, lots of daylight between where we need to be and where we're at. An emergency means that if we do not act or respond to the impacts of climate change by reducing our carbon emissions, reducing our livestock production, reducing our land clearing and fossil fuel consumption, the impacts will likely be more severe than we've experienced to date, said lead author Dr. Thomas Newsom from the University of Sydney. That could mean, this is what this means, that there are areas on Earth that are not, they say inhabitable, but habitable by people. Inhabitable areas. What do they propose? Gene says, I think the article was needed. It was a shift in the scientist's role, more political. Good. Be authentic, said Kevin. I've been wearing your Black Bear News shirt at least once a week. Hope I've been getting you more viewers from the Inland Empire in Southern California. Hey, right on. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't. It's been a while since I put those shirts out, and I don't really have a way to get them on the site. But I'm gonna work on that, because if anybody wants to get a Black Bear shirt, I'm gonna make it easy for you, as in not impossible, because right now it's kind of impossible unless you hit me up personally. Global environmentalists don't ride a lawnmower, push it. Exactly. Gene said if we actually seriously did the 6 recommendations, it would take a huge difference. It would make a huge difference. So let's read those 6 recommendations. They're right here. Energy. Politicians should impose carbon fees high enough to discourage the use of fossil fuels. They should end subsidies to fossil fuel companies and implement massive conservation practices while also replacing oil and gas with renewables. Here's the problem with that. You're going to, part of what sparked the Yellow Vest movement was carbon fees, because you're not giving people any alternatives, right? And especially people who are poor, people who are stretched paycheck to paycheck, who absolutely need their cars to get to their job or to get around or to live. Like, you have to give somebody an out. You have to give somebody an alternative. You have to, I think carbon fees, that's a big problem with carbon fees. So I don't know if I agree with this, because you're kind of like squeezing people. You're squeezing people before giving them an alternative, and that's not really cool. You have to set up society in a way that's so that people can get around without, the gas, or get to their jobs. You have to have solid mass transportation, or you have to have a localized economy, either or both. I don't know about this one. Short-lived pollutants. These include methane, hydrofluorocarbons, and soot. The researchers say that limiting these has the potential to cut the short-term warming trend by 50% over the next few decades. Yeah, okay. Absolutely, we should do that. Nature stopped land clearing, restore forests, grasslands, and mangroves, which would all help to sequester CO2. Yes, I agree with that. I believe in that. Food, a big dietary shift is needed, say researchers, so that people eat mostly plants and consume fewer animal products. Reducing food waste is also seen as critical. Yes, that's great. Economy. Convert the economy's reliance on carbon fuels and change away from growing the world's gross domestic product and pursuing affluence. Yes, I agree with that. But we have to talk about low carbon living, not switching to renewables. I think that would be a better conversation to have. Population, the world needs to stabilize the global population, which is growing by around 200,000 a day. So I would flip these and put the carbon tax on the bottom of this list. Well, I don't know why they put it first, because it's the least helpful and it's the least necessary. In fact, I would leave it off this list. But population should be at the very top of this list. Of course, they put it at the bottom because, you don't want to talk about population? Oh, we can't talk about population. We'll put it at the bottom of the list because we don't want to scare people away from reading this article that tells people that we need to lower the population, right? We need to reduce the population, or we need to stop making the population grow. At least stop. At least plateau. A plateau would be, whatever. Say population growth and carbon emissions. I mean, we'd be winning if we could even just stop increasing both of those. But that's not going to do much for us because we're going to have to go in the other direction. I'm sorry to say, I know that sounds really harsh and draconian, and nobody wants to think about living like that or having that imposed on them or having to think about. Nobody wants to think about that. Local Natural Progressive says local is going to become mandatory soon. Remember to like the video, guys, so that everybody can see that we're live. Rich Diana says, we're getting closer to the panic stage ever faster. Cherish your equilibrium. Keith Boyd says there are no alternatives to the current business as usual. I mean, I think there are alternatives. I mean, you have an Amish population in the United States that lives almost completely outside of our system. If you just want an example, and the Amish are pretty visible and they're pretty well known. Do they use some implements of modern technology or society? Yes, they do, but very, very little. There are also intentional communities that live outside of business as usual. There are communes, there are communities that grow their own food. There are transition towns. There's a huge community in India that is, very low resource community. They're very intentional. They don't use a lot of energy. They grow their own food. There are examples. They're not very visible, and they're nothing that you would see on the mainstream media would never shine a light on them. But they're there, and I think we need to seek those communities out, or shine a light on those communities. And I don't think that it's silly to live that way. I don't think it's silly to try. I don't think it's, it's a matter of doing the right thing. When you're doing the right thing, it doesn't, if you're doing the right thing and you're expecting this right thing to change everybody's mind, I mean, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Will it change everybody's mind? Maybe. But you're doing the right thing for its own sake. Natural Progressive says USA needs less people. Yes, because the people that live here use like 30 times the resources of somebody that lives in a third world country. Right? So, yes, overpopulation is a problem in other countries, precisely because they don't have the resources to support that population, right? So it requires more resources. It requires, more infrastructure or more food being shipped in or more whatever. Oh, we don't have enough food. Where are we going to get this food and water from? So you don't want to stretch your resources to the point where there are not enough resources to support your population. However, conversely, if you live in a first world country, we have bought up, hoarded, stole, whatever it is, we've got all the resources and we're using them, 30 times faster than people in third world countries. So, and that's not okay either. So I don't know. Boiled rope lamppost says, be an example to others. Anthony Davis says, you show a positive commitment that is a rare quality today. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I really don't. I don't know what the alternative is. I understand the alternative might be being, depressed or bitter or cynical or pissed or angry. I understand all those emotions around this, but I just don't see, like, I'll see it when I see it. I know what's coming, but it's until we have a situation where it's like all the infrastructure is down or our grid is down or there, collapse is really upon us, that's when I'll be like, oh, okay, guess it's pretty bad now. But I mean, right now, there's a lot of stability. There's still stability in the system. And it could be very short lived. I mean, it could all go away next year. I'm not I'm not naive to not understand that. But I mean, right now, in this moment, we have some stability in the system. So, we have the ability to make changes, not just on a personal level, but on a global infrastructure level. Scott Murdo says most of us doing alternative things on the ground are too busy doing it to be talking about it outside of our local communities. And that's another thing too, is that I wanted to say is that, if you're in one of those communities, you're just in the community, right? You're taking care of your people, you're growing your food, you're doing what you need to do. And those communities, may or may not be connected to this larger, the larger infrastructure, or the need to, to be, some people are on this channel. Some people who are on this channel are living in intentional communities, or living in intentional situations where they're off the grid, or they're low energy consumption, or they're growing their own food, or all of the above. And they still have internet and Wi-Fi, and they have access to this community via that. But you wouldn't necessarily know it because they're not being megaphoned, right? Nobody's seeing all that, what is possible, or what could happen. The dude, so Daniel V says China emits 27% of the world's CO2. Oh, 27%. I wonder what, the USA is close behind. I think we're pretty up there. The dude says I'm allergic to corn, rice, and legumes, including soy. So personally, I'm extra fucked. I'm sorry about that, man. Maximus D Truth says check out this guy for off-grid living, Maximus Iron Thumper. And that's another thing. There are a lot of resources on the Webernauts, or the Wibernets, the interwebs. I don't know what I was trying to say there. There's a lot of resources. There are a lot of people who are living off grid. There are a lot of videos out there by people who have set up entire, farms and living situations where they are all off grid, and they tell you how they do it, and it's easy to find. I'm not saying it's easy to do. It's probably difficult to do, but it can be done. Global environmentalists say USA is below replacement rate in population. That's true. They're actually like a lot of other first world countries, in that their population is declining, except outside of immigration, outside of people coming into the country from other places. Which is okay. I mean, that's the argument for education and women having access to birth control, and people having awareness around birth control. That's why people promote that as birth control, education, and women having access to birth control. Because in first world countries, they generally have those things, and in those countries, generally, populations or birth rates are falling. Japan is, well, it's interesting because Japan's birth rate has been falling for a really long time, and yet they have a pretty large population, and Tokyo is one of the most populated cities on the earth, on the planet. So where's all this population coming from in Japan? I don't know. And the other problem is that, we're still exporting our way of life, our standard of living, which that whole notion of standard of living, I don't know, that has to be redefined, because I think that's a really dangerous thing to put into people's minds, that like, oh, we want to raise the standards of living for, the world population. Bullshit. If the world, if we're trying to raise the standard of living of the entire world population to that of a first world country, we are extra doomed, right? Because we're already using 1.5 or more Earths every year. when everybody's got a washing machine and a car and a, all the things that they're supposed to have and are exporting of, our standard of living, then we're going to be using even more resources. So that's not the answer. Standard of living is, I don't know, that has to be, I think standard of living should just be like access to, food, healthcare, and housing. The end. like there should be a cap on what a standard of living is, because when you say standard of living, you mean like, well, everybody wants to live like us, right? Wrong. If everybody lived like us, end of the world. Well, it's already end of the world because everybody's living like us. Thank you guys for the super chats. I appreciate you. Natural Progressive and the dude, I appreciate you, the super chats. Thank you guys. Veronica Harris, education, and I'll add another one, education. Osama, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat. He says, like it up, folks. Remember to like this video so we get more viewers. The more viewers, the more better. Jesse Daly says, to be fair, most modern nuclear plants will just shut down without incident if people were to disappear. I don't know. I wonder about that. Without incident, meaning they won't melt down? I'm not sure. Jack Leroy says, around the world, cars have created the most problems of any single invention. Climate change, pollution, etc. And you can see that in... So, here's an interesting thing that, we never hear this talked about in the U.S., but in other countries, they've actually banned cars. Some cities have banned cars from driving to reduce pollution, right? Was it Delhi in India, I think, did that because their pollution problem was so bad. At one point, they said no car traffic. Paris, France, first world country, because the pollution was so bad in Paris, they actually like barred people from driving their cars for a few days. This has happened in China. I'm trying to think of places that I know that this has happened, but, we would never, never hear that in the U.S. Like, you would never hear anybody say, like, maybe we should ban the cars. Maybe we should stop driving. I mean, and it's obvious why, because, God forbid God forbid that you deny people the right to drive in the U.S. I mean, hair on fire moment. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hapsataki, thank you. €5 Ponzi units for our man. Woo. Boiled rope lampposts, thank you. Clean water is essential to life. Stay hydrated, my friends. I added the my friends. Be authentic. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Mexico City as well. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I do remember that. They have, Mexico City has a really bad pollution problem, and they have in the past banned cars from driving for a short while just to clear the air. China has actually gone as far as to shut down their factories, right, for special events. If they're having World Cup or Olympic event or something, whatever. If they have something where there's going to be a lot of TVs on, cameras in the house, they will shut down all the factories around the city to, like a couple days before, just to make sure the air clears out. Don't want anybody seeing this. Basil, namaste. How are you? Natural Progressive says, all you guys are awesome. Jesse Daly says, but the modern designs will automatically go to a subcritical configuration if they are abandoned. I didn't know that. The modern ones. So I wonder about the non-modern. How many non-modern ones do we have around? I wonder. Natural Progressive says our air is as bad as China at times here in Utah. Yeah, Utah actually has had recently some very bad particulate like problems, and that's from what, right? Power plants or fracking, or what do you guys have going on there? That I know it's due to certain certain activities going on, industrial activities going on out there. Thank you guys for being here. We got 70 viewers. Solid. Basil says, snowing here in the Finger Lakes. Snow. Yeah, so we have, I guess in the last week, we've had a weird jet stream going on where half the country is abnormally warm. Guess what half I'm in? It's like 90 degrees outside. Maybe not 90. It's close. It's very warm. And the other half is very cold, experiencing the wintry times. Gene says, here a person can only drive their car on certain days in the capital. You're in Costa Rica, mostly because of traffic jams. Natural Progressive says refineries are the cause of the Utah the poor air quality in Utah. Hapsataki says it's snowing here too. Polar vortex, yeah. I mean, they don't distorted jet stream, polar vortex, whatever you want to call it. It's D-Truth says we got space weather too. He said coal plants, not cool plants. Yeah. So let's I wanted to maybe finish up this video dipping into this Arctic news. I back and cover these articles in their own videos later this week, but I just wanted to in Queensland, Australia. Sorry to hear that, brother. So latest from Arctic News, November 5th, a record CO2 rise rate since the KT dinosaur extinction 66 million years ago. Again, this is, we already know this is happening. Our, CO2 rise is, we are far outpacing any of the extinction events in history, the history of the planet. As a concentration, this is by Andrew Glickson. I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I'm just going to dip into it a little bit. As a concentration of atmospheric CO2 has risen to 408 parts per million, that's a low ball, and the total greenhouse gas level, including methane and nitrous oxide, combined to near 500 parts per million CO2 equivalent, and that's the important number to understand. The stability threshold of the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets currently melting at an accelerated rate has been exceeded. The consequent expansion of tropics and the shift of climate zones toward the shrinking poles lead to increasingly warm and dry conditions under which firestorms currently engulfing large parts of South America, California, Alaska, Siberia, Sweden, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Angola, Australia, and elsewhere have become a dominant factor in the destruction of terrestrial habitats. Since the 18th century, combustion of fossil fuels has led to the release of more than 910 billion tons of carbon dioxide by human activity, raising CO2 to about 408.5 parts per million as compared to the 280 to 300 parts per million range prior to the onset of the industrial age. The current carbon dioxide rise rate exceeds the fastest rates estimated for the KT asteroid impact 66.4 million years ago, and the PETM hypothermal event 55.9 million years ago by an order of magnitude. The current growth rate of atmospheric greenhouse gases, in particular over the last 70 years or so, may appear gradual in our lifetime, but it constitutes an extreme event in the recorded history of Earth, hence the name Anthropocene. So yeah, the rate at which we are warming the planet and which we are adding CO2. Well, all the other times that CO2 increased at a lesser rate led to extinction events. And I don't know where this is leading us to. What do you all think? So of course we have had this level of CO2 in the atmosphere before, and we had, the oceans were at 100 feet higher. That's it. I just wanted to dip into that for a moment, and maybe I'll read that some more on another video. But again, also news that we already know. Gene says in Spanish, traffic jam is presa, which comes from the word being imprisoned. It feels that way. Every day of my life is a traffic jam, I'm sorry to say. Osama says a new hole is opening up in the sun's atmosphere, and it is spewing a stream of solar wind towards the Earth. Estimated time of arrival, November 10th to 11th. That's in 3 days. Arctic skywatchers should be alert for extra bright auroras on those dates. Thanks for the heads up, Osama. Remember to like the video, guys. We're at 77 viewers. Paul Beckwith covers jet stream distortion science due to Arctic heating. Yep, he does it indeed. This is pretty well-known science, but yeah, if you're new to this, or if you're new to this channel or new to the science, definitely seek out Paul Beckwith. Others will give you the same. There are others talking about it as well, but Lightning Rod, hello from Thunder Bay. Let's see. Oh, Osama, happy birthday. Where did I miss that? Happy birthday, Osama. Coming up soon, yeah? Veronica Harris has got my wood-burning stove going today. 9 degrees here. Ooh, frigid. You're at 9 degrees. We can't seem to get below like 80 during the day. It's wild. Sorry to rub it in. I know. Eventually we'll get winter. But our seasons have been all scrambled around. We had a really cool winter and spring this year. It was really wild. We were abnormally cold, and very wet. It was very wet, rainy, and abnormally cold. 78. Maybe we can get to 80 before we end this. That would be awesome. Hapsutaki says the methane levels are also insane, and we know it's up to 25 times or so potent a greenhouse gas in comparison to CO2, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Yeah, no, actually methane levels are, in some areas, that they were measuring 9 times higher than normal. But I think we've gone from like a 700 parts per billion methane. That was, our at baseline, right? I think that's what it was. If I'm incorrect, we got 80 viewers. Thanks, guys. And now, now we're hovering around the 2,000 parts per billion area. So that's like almost 3 times. It's not good. And what does methane break down into? I have to say it again because it's so depressing. CO2. Sulfur hexafluoride, yes. That is also a problem. Happy birthday, Hierophant. Well, all right. Scorpio's in the house. Daniel V says abnormally cold in Detroit. Didn't know you were in Detroit. Detroit is one of my favorite cities. Love Detroit, even in the cold, because people don't care if it's cold or snowing. They go out and do what they got to do anyways. I love that about Detroit and the people of Detroit. Oh, and don't forget water vapor. Hierophant reminded us all about our old friend water vapor. Yeah. Oh, and Void is reminding us has it been a year since PK Signs passed away? A longtime viewer and frequent commenter on this channel, PK Signs, passed away last year on November 18th. And her son got onto the channel and alerted us to what happened to PK. But she was real cool. She was a really cool lady, and she was always in the comment section, and she's very missed, definitely. Please, everyone, troll at least once Rebel Media. I don't know what that is. Are they some deniers? Yeah, shout out to PK Signs. Rest in peace, PK Signs. And yeah, she was ultra cool. Very cool lady. Thank you guys so much for being here. We are nearing the end of this live stream. I thought I was going to talk about so much more, but I think it's because I start, getting into the comments and start talking to people, which is actually what I like. What I like about doing these live streams is I get to interact with you guys because, the interaction on the regular videos is a little more passive, and sometimes I don't see comments for like a day or two, and by the time I get to respond or talk to people about it, it's there's already other videos out, et cetera, et cetera. So I like to interact with y'all real time. And yeah, man, Detroit's cool. Detroit is really cool. Excellent city. If anybody, anybody who's badmouths Detroit, they don't even understand how great a city Detroit is. One of my favorite cities. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Rebel Media is a Canadian science denier and just generally he foments trouble on all fronts. Okay. Maybe I'll drop in and I don't know. Talk some mess in the comments and see what happens. I kind of like to do that once in a while. I like to poke the beehive once in a while and get everybody. And then everybody comes over to my channel and then they start jumping on the comment section and start disliking all the videos. I don't care. It's whatever. It's whatever. Why does a clock move clockwise? Oh, no. Is it I think, anyways. Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy. Thank you, Jody Connolly. Thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all. I'm out of here. I will see you with the regular uploads this weekend, and I will see you right back here next Thursday at 1 p.m. Peace. Anthony, I'm trying to get Greta on my show. Absolutely. We'll see. I can't get anybody to respond to me. I'm trying to get Kevin Anderson on my show. I don't know. I have to break through. Maybe I have to get an assistant to, I need an assistant to introduce me to these, these hoi polloi. All right, guys, take it easy.